My Quest 3 arrived on the 10th, the day it was scheduled to be fully released to the public, and after playing around with it for a few days, I'm ready to give my initial impressions of this headset. This is not a full in-depth review, as I like to test the headset for a few weeks, maybe a month before that, and that video is coming, so subscribe and all that jazz for that video. In the meantime, this will let you know my thoughts on this after using it for a few days and maybe help you decide if you should get it too. So let's get started. Price wise, you're looking at a 128GB version at $499.99 and a 512GB version at $649.99. I bought the 512 version as 128 didn't seem like enough considering many games can easily be 1GB or more, and with recordings and such, I could see myself quickly using up that 128GB of storage space. There is speculation that Meta may do what they did with the Quest 2 and start with the 128GB version, but then bump that storage option to a higher one, like say, 256 at the same price. Hard to predict the future though, so you will have to decide if you just buy the 128GB version now, assuming that's your choice, or wait to see if you can get a larger storage options later at the same price. Now that you have an idea how much damage this may do to your pocketbook, let's talk about the thing Meta is pushing hard with this headset. It's mixed reality and it's pass-through. Starting with the room scanning. I found in my space it worked pretty well. Sometimes I would need to walk into corners it wasn't seeing, but ultimately it worked fine scanning my room. And if you're so inclined, you can add tables and such, which I did not do. Even without me intentionally adding things in, it seemed to identify surfaces pretty well. As an example, when playing Meta's included mixed reality game, that little spaceship actually landed on my physical desk almost as if it knew it was there. When it comes to the Guardian, you can either use its room scanning feature to let it choose a Guardian for you, or you can manually do it yourself. Whether you choose to let it pick one for you will depend heavily on your specific situation. For me, in my room, I intentionally play close to the couch and the desk because I know I won't hit them as they are low to the ground, and I can use them as references by tapping them with my feet, all while standing on a rug that keeps me centered. All this to say that I keep plenty of distance between me and my TVs because I hate to put a fist through one of those while in VR. It wasn't capable of taking all these nuances into account and kept choosing a Guardian for me that I'm confident would have resulted in a broken TV and maybe a broken fist, so I ultimately chose to manually draw one my own. Moving on to the pass-through, this is where you need to manage your expectations. Hearing people talk leading up to the release of this headset, I felt the expectation was this amazing pass-through driven by its 2 RGB color cameras and its depth sensor. The reality? It's not mind-blowing amazing. But on the other hand, it's also not bad either. If you're coming from a Quest 2, the improvement is huge, no doubt about that. But if you're coming from a Quest Pro or a Pico 4, or hell, even the XR Elite, I personally find it better, but only marginally so. You can now actually read screens, well, mostly, so if a call comes in on your phone, you can pick it up and see who's calling you. You can respond to text messages or mute your TV's audio, or if you're running timers for some reason like I do a lot, you can reset those and such without removing your headset. As far as TVs go, if I'm sitting about 2 to 4 feet from the screen, I can usually read what's there, but if I sit any further away, which I typically do, it's not that great. Moving through the house is easy enough as everything's pretty clear. There is some distortion, so be aware of that, but all in all, pass-through isn't a bad experience. Just, like I said, manage your expectations is all. As far as mixed reality experiences go, I've only done a few so far, and they are fun. I did the one Meta provides, and it was fun enough. Nothing I will probably circle back to, but in the moment it was enjoyable. I've started doing things like Beat Saber via virtual desktop in mixed reality, as well as Les Mills and Smash Drums in mixed reality, and I really like it and will probably continue using them that way. I've also started using virtual desktop's pass-through home environment to place a big old screen on my wall to watch movies in, and that is absolutely amazing. As I acquire more mixed reality content to play with, I will solidify my thoughts more on this, but for now, I am hopeful and the Quest 3 really feels like a solid platform to do it on. Moving on to the audio speakers on this thing, I only have one thing to say. Oh my god, they are so loud. They are so loud I have to turn them down about 3 notches because they hurt my ears otherwise. This is actually a hugely positive thing because one of my issues with prior headsets I've used was the audio sounded weak and low quality, and I always needed to use an external headphones to get the full experience. Not the case here. They are not only loud, they are actually pretty decent quality with decent lows and mids and such. It's really nice being able to put on a headset and not then have to look for my earbuds only to realize I forgot to charge them the night before. For me, these speakers are good enough that I don't feel the need in the slightest to use an external device to play on the Quest 3. Alright, future me hopping in here real quick. Later I'm going to mention using some Pico 4 AMVR Halo strap for this thing. You will see in the photo that I placed them over some of these speakers on this Quest 3. These speakers are so good, doing this does nothing to impact the quality or lessen the sound. So back to past me. The weight of the Quest 3 is 523 grams, which is actually approximately 21 grams heavier than the Quest 2 at 502 grams. But because the Quest 3 is 40%-ish slimmer thanks to the pancake lenses it has, it's actually more comfortable to wear. As far as the stock strap it comes with, it's a toss-up if you will personally find it more comfortable, the same, or worse than the Quest 2 stock strap. I've seen some say it's slightly more comfortable, others say it's about the same. For me, it's about the same as the Quest 2 strap. I do not find the Quest 2 strap too uncomfortable, and as such, I do not find the Quest 3 strap to be that uncomfortable either, but it's not amazing either. And I immediately began looking for alternatives to it. For now, I've settled on using this AMVR Pico 4 Halo piece minus the facial interface, and I must say, huge improvement here for me. It brings the lenses closer to my eyes, only marginally so, but still closer is closer, and it opens up airflow across the front of the face. So really like this AMVR Pico 4 piece on the Quest 3. Third parties will be coming out with alternatives to this, but of course that means spending more money on something that's already not so cheap. So I would, however, strongly discourage you from buying any of the Meta alternatives, as they are and always have been horribly overpriced, and with a little patience you will be able to buy a superior product from other companies like BoboVR and others for much cheaper. Let's talk about its FOV now. I was originally concerned about this because during an AMA, Bosworth had said the FOV would be about the same as the Quest 2, which isn't that great. As it turns out, that wasn't the case, and Meta's official numbers are now 110 degrees horizontal and 96 degrees vertical. In the real world, however, for me, I measured 106 horizontal and 106 vertical with the facial interface set to place my eyes as close to those lenses as possible. This is a fantastic number and is actually better than what I get with the Quest Pro or the Pico 4, and it's definitely better than what you will get on the Quest 2. But FOV is definitely one of those highly subjective things and will depend heavily on how close to the lenses you are. As an example, if I move the glasses spacer on the facial interface all the way out, I now get an FOV of 100 horizontal and 100 degrees vertical. And when using that AMVR halo strap I mentioned earlier, I'm able to get even closer and squeeze out another half to full degree on the horizontal and the vertical. Your mileage may vary, but I'm confident that wherever it falls for you, you'll be pleased, especially if you're coming from a Quest 2. If you're coming from the Quest 2, another huge improvement is how it handles its IPD adjustments. Rather than physically moving the lenses like on the Quest 2 or the Quest Pro, there is a wheel on the headset itself that you adjust it with, and you will see a number displayed on the inside when you do. Meta says it accommodates IPD ranges between 53 and 75 millimeter, but you need to refer to their chart to see where you fall. As an example, my IPD is 59, and so when referring to this chart, I need to set the headset at 64, which is the number I see when inside the headset. If you're someone who wears glasses, the facial interface has a feature built in so you can adjust it out to make room for those glasses, but as stated earlier, you will lose FOV when doing that. You can also, of course, buy prescription lenses for it. Moving on to the chip it runs on, resolution and performance, it's got the Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 chip, which is another huge step up from the Quest 2 and a smaller step up from the Quest Pro. Its resolution is 2064 by 2208, and it's got refresh rates of 72, 80, 90 Hz, and an experimental 120 Hz. For me, the performance improvements with this new chip over the prior ones was most noticeable when I was attempting to record content or cast content to screens. When using prior headsets, even with the Quest Pro, when recording stuff, I had a very noticeable drop in performance, but with the Quest 3, it had no problems doing both for me. In the short term, I wouldn't expect that performance improvement to be hugely impactful in most standalone games though. With the improved resolution, you can expect to see a minor improvement in visuals in your Quest 2 games, but for the Quest 3 to get the most out of this chip, developers will have to actually develop for the Quest 3. And there are actually a few games that have been revamped for the Quest 3, and those improvements are significant, and moving forward more games will be revamped, but this takes time, so if you're buying a Quest 3 today, you need to manage your expectations. As far as the current visuals go on the current standalone games, the picture is clear and sharp and quite nice. My only negative would be the blacks. They are a bit bland for me. I have been using the Quest Pro as my daily driver for a while now, which has amazing blacks, and when I put on the Quest 3, I immediately notice the blacks lacking. Again, this will probably heavily depend on where you're coming from. I'm coming from the Quest Pro, but if you're coming from a Quest 2, probably not going to be noticeable to you. What I was just talking about was simply the standalone side of things. If you're a PC VR gamer, on the other hand, you're in for a treat. First off, this thing has Wi-Fi 6E, which will mean, to get the most of it, if you have not already, you will need to buy a Wi-Fi 6E router. I will link in the description which one I use. It cannot be understated how much of a difference the Wi-Fi 6E 6 GHz frequency is for wireless operation. It was noticeable when I started using the Quest Pro, which also has it, and is even more noticeable on the Quest 3, which is an even more powerful headset. One of my go-tos was Beat Saber, which I've always needed to wire into for max performance, but now on the Quest 3, I literally feel no need for wires. As far as the visuals go, I've been playing through Half-Life Alyx again simply because the picture is so darn good. It's clear, it's sharp, it's detailed. As mentioned before, the blacks leave something to be desired, but that's minor. If you're looking for a fantastic PC VR headset, it is hard for me not to recommend the Quest 3 at this price point, maybe even over the Pico 4. Now, while you can do PC VR using Meta's own AirLink, I would strongly discourage that and would strongly encourage you to buy the Virtual Desktop app for $20. In my mind, this app is a must-have for PC VR gaming, and it has an insane amount of features that help you adjust your gaming to your specific PC specs, which will allow you to get the most out of your VR experience. As this is simply a first impressions video, I've really only been touching on the things I've found of most interest. This next one is not something I would have expected to fall on that list, at least not until I used it, and that would be the controllers. Frankly, I was fully expecting to pair up my Quest Pro controllers to it for my daily driver needs. Well, after a few days of test driving it, I've not once thought about those Pro controllers. My skepticism came from the fact that they were removing the tracking rings and placing the IR sensors in places where they may get blocked, and then using the hand tracking system as well as some AI stuff to kind of sort of keep track of everything. After my experience with the Pro controllers, I was fully expecting a lot of growing pains here. As of the recording of this video, I've had 0 tracking issues. I've used them in well-lit areas, low-lit areas, blocking some of the IR sensors in the controllers by using a claw grip for Beat Saber, even using a clawish grip in Beat Saber while in low light, and I've had no issues whatsoever with tracking. The low light thing was the one that really impressed me. It was at night, all lights off in my place except for the light from my TVs, playing Beat Saber with a grip where I was for sure blocking some of the sensors on the outer edge of the controllers, if not some in other places as well, and I had no tracking issues. I guess the real question you want answered though is, should you buy it? And more importantly, who should buy it? If you currently own a Quest 2 and you very much enjoy VR, go ahead and buy it. It's a significant step up from the Quest 2 in every way, shape, or form. If you were thinking of upgrading to the Quest Pro as your upgrade path, unless you really need face and eye tracking, go with the Quest 3 instead. It's cheaper, it will probably do everything that the Pro can do, only better. Sure, at this point in time, we won't be getting the most performance from it because the Quest 3 exclusives need to be made and existing games need to be revamped, but even without all that, it's a huge improvement over the Quest 2. If you're new to VR and are not sure if you will even like VR, $500+ is a lot to spend to figure out if VR is even for you. And the $300 Quest 2 or even the cheaper used alternatives is probably a better pill to swallow. But before you decide, consider the following. Amazon and other companies tend to have return policies, so one could buy the Quest 3, decide within that return window if it's for you, and if not, return it. But if VR is for you, you now have an amazing device that will bring you a lot of joy, and you've saved money not buying that $300 Quest 2 or the cheaper alternatives. As far as the Quest Pro users and the Pico 4 users out there, it's not such a huge improvement over those devices that I'd recommend spending another $500+ just to get it. If you have loads of disposable income, sure, buy it. But if not, maybe hold off and see what else is coming in the future. Like, I don't know, maybe the Deckard? But what do y'all think? Have you already caved into the Quest 3 pressure and bought one? What did you think of it? I would love to know in the comments below.